First section will involve the structure of our Pennsylvania court systems and then a brief question and answer period. Then we'll look at election of judges in Pennsylvania and a second question and answer period. And then we'll finish with your roles, the roles of the public within the Allegheny County courts with a final question and answer period. With that, I turn that over to Attorney Walker and Judge Williams Duncan.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for inviting me for this event. So we're going to jump right in. So on the screen now you see the history of our courts. Colony of Pennsylvania created a Supreme Court in 1722. And the first Allegheny County Courthouse, which now you see on Grand Street, was first built in the current Market Square in 1794, where the United States Constitution created the U.S. Supreme Court in 1789. So just a little bit of history lesson on this Monday evening. Next. The makeup of our courts, the hierarchy of our courts. Let's start from the bottom up. The Magisterial District Court, which we'll talk about in detail, what cases they hear and how they decide different cases and issues, whether it be criminal, civil, landlord, tenant, a host of issues which they decide. Then you have the Court of Common Pleas, which is affectionately called, quote unquote, Big Court, which is here all the appeals from Magisterial District Court. Above that, you have Superior Court, which is your court of right for appeal, your first appeal of right, and Commonwealth Court, which we'll discuss in detail later on. And the highest court in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Next, the minor judiciary. And I think that I'll bring in the judge, I'll tag her in this slide. The minor judiciary has 46 magisterial district courts with MDJs, which we call them magistrate judges, in Allegheny County, aka the 5th Judicial District of Pennsylvania. It is located at the Pittsburgh Municipal Court building with 4 MDJs presiding. And in that building, as the judge will tell you, there's arraignments, there's preliminary hearings, there's summary trials, there's non-traffics, there's also people where people get fingerprinted, where warrants are cleared, where people get arraigned, where bond is set. And we like to call that building city court. So if you hear someone refer to, hey, I got to go downtown to pay a parking ticket at city court or a PMC or the municipal building or the building behind the jail, that's where they're going. Judge?
In Pittsburgh Municipal Court, Pittsburgh City Court is very unique. It's a very unique setup. And you'll hear, or you may hear, different officials across Pennsylvania say that there are 4 magisterial district judges presiding in Pittsburgh Municipal Court at any given time. But actually what's unique about it is that the 12 city magisterial district judges actually rotate. We serve in the municipal court on a rotating basis. So Monday is my day. So I actually served all day today in Pittsburgh Municipal Court. And as Attorney Walker stated, there's so much going on there. You may see anything from a basic arraignment for retail theft up to a preliminary hearing for a homicide. And the magisterial district judges cover, all of those cases. But again, there are 12 magisterial district judges who sit in Pittsburgh municipal courts who actually operate out of the Pittsburgh Municipal Court building. And it's a 24/7 operation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because when those arraignments come in, or if there's a request for a bench warrant or an off-hour PFAs, those are handled downtown in city court by the magisterial district judges. Thank you.
Yes, and also before we move to the next, thank you, Judge. Before we move to the next slide, if you are told you need to go downtown to clear a warrant, or you have a bench warrant, odds are, for the majority of the time, you're going to go to this building, the municipal court building, aka city court. Next. Again, in magistrate court, they handle civil actions less than $12,000. Let's say a neighbor dispute, a minor fender bender maybe, or maybe even a issue involving a contract dispute. Summary and minor offenses, landlord-tenant disputes, criminal cases, except for murder and voluntary manslaughter. They issue arrest warrants, hold preliminary hearings, fix and accept bail, and resolve some civil and criminal cases. Non-traffic summary offenses, I like to call those the college crimes or the quote-unquote stupid crimes. public drunkenness, public urination, disorderly conduct. Just think of what would happen if you're after a Steeler game or after a Pirate game and we lost. Those are commonly the offenses that will be handled as a non-traffic offense. Traffic offenses, which are self-explanatory, and it's not a court of record. I saw a question pop up. Are we answering those questions now? If so, I can turn that to the judge for what is a PFA?
I'm sorry, PFA is protection from abuse. And it's actually done in 3 levels. The protection from abuse in city court and municipal court, we only issue emergency protections from abuse. And that's in a situation where there's basically an imminent danger, but the magisterial district courts and the family division is closed. That protection is only good until the court opens again. So most of the time it's going to be the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, where you would obtain a temporary protection from abuse, a 10-day waiting period, and then a hearing for a permanent protection from abuse.
Yes, thank you. Next.
And I'm sorry, just the one thing that I didn't see, and I should have said it earlier on the slide for the magisterial district judges, which is for me probably the most one of the most pressing issues that we hear, are the truancy cases. The truancy cases are heard by the magisterial district judges. For the Pittsburgh Public Schools, we hear cases for whatever schools are in our district, except me, the North Side. I hear all of the North Side cases. And then for the outlying offices outside of the city of Pittsburgh, whatever school district lands into your magisterial district, you would hear those truancy cases. So very, very important, in always, addressing and dealing with our children. So just wanted to make sure we put that in there.
Yes. The Court of Common Pleas, and you saw the hierarchy pyramid where you have the magisterial district judge at the court at the bottom. The next step up is the Court of Common Pleas. So let's say you have a preliminary hearing at the magisterial district judge or city court, and the judge decides that there is enough evidence that you may have committed the crime and there was a crime that was committed. That's called prima facie, which means there's enough evidence to move forward. So they're going to bind it over to Common Pleas Court, which they call big court. So when you hear someone say, yes, my case got held over or bound over, sent up the street to big court, we're talking about the Court of Common Pleas. And the Court of Common Pleas hears appeals from the minor courts and appeals not exclusively assigned to another court. It adjudicates matters involving children and families and holds civil and criminal judge and jury trials. 43 Common Pleas court judges in the 5th Judicial District, and handles disputes and issues involving more than $12,000. So if you hear of a offense where it's a fender bender and it's in excess of the $12,000, odds are it's going to be heard in the Court of Common Pleas as opposed to the magisterial district. Judge, any comment on that?
Nope, you covered it all.
All right. Question came in, where is this higher court situated in Pittsburgh? Great question. It is on, I believe it's the exact address is 436 Grant Street. If some Google search would confirm that. And I believe that is correct. 436 Grant Street. That is in Pittsburgh. It is I believe situated between Grant and Forbes, downtown Pittsburgh. And I hope that answers that question. You're welcome. Court administration, the way this set up is we have a president judge who is currently Judge Clark. We have civil division judges where the administrative judge is Judge Ward. Criminal division where the administrative judge is Judge Rangos. Family division where the judge is Judge Eaton. And orphans court where the administrative judge is Judge O'Toole. And as you see on the screen, each court handles different matters. For example, the civil division handles torts, contract disputes. Criminal judge handles felonies and misdemeanors and probation. The family division handles divorce, child support, juvenile, children's court, and PFAs. And the orphans court handles wills and estates, civil commitments, adoptions, and guardianships. Next slide. Why would I need to go to the Allegheny County Courthouse? There is two major types of cases. A civil suit and a criminal case. Think of a civil suit as look at the result. What is the result you're looking for? If the result you're looking for is money, you're going to go to it's going to involve a civil suit. If the result you're looking for is staying out of jail, hopefully, then the result is in criminal court. This slide delineates exactly what happens in a civil suit. We live in Westmoreland County. Are the names and functions of the court system essentially the same? I will leave that to the judge. My first answer is yes, but after we talk about this, I will go to that question. The civil suit is between two litigants, a plaintiff and defendant. It will determine whether the defendant is liable for injury or harm due to the plaintiff, and the plaintiff must have a preponderance of evidence standard, and there's no right to an attorney there. In criminal case, it's between the prosecutor who represents the state or the Commonwealth, not the victim, and it involves the defendant. And the determination there is whether the defendant has broken the law, and the prosecutor must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and you have an absolute right to an attorney. So those are the two distinctions between the two types of cases. Mainly, the main standard between each one in civil court is preponderance of evidence. Is it more likely than not? Whereas in criminal cases, beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest burden of proof you could have. Judge, any response to that?
Well,
follow-up?
just with the question itself, why would I need to go to the Allegheny County Courthouse? Just something to keep in mind is that all of your cases, your hearings are not necessarily going to take place in that particular building. In the Allegheny County Courthouse, you're right, in the actual courthouse. And by the way, I do believe it is 436 Grant. Just remember those two buildings that look like castles. And one is the criminal courthouse. The other one is the family division building, actually, which was converted. It used to be the old Allegheny County Jail, and it was converted to the family division building in the year 2000. But most of your civil cases, some of your civil cases are going to be heard actually in a city county building, where there are courtrooms on the upper floors. Your criminal cases are going to be held in the Allegheny County Courthouse. And then all of your family division cases take place in the Family Division Center, which is across the street from the criminal courthouse. And when you're on Ross Street, you'll see the overpass, the walkway that connects from the criminal courthouse to the family division. You can't use it, but it's nice architecture. That's all.
Thank you. Next slide. Intermediate appellate courts. Superior Court hears civil and criminal appeals from the Court of Common Pleas, including matters involving families, automatic right of appeal. So in a criminal case, at the end of a criminal case, if you are found guilty or you plead guilty, you are given your appellate rights. And some of those appellate rights gives you the right to file an appeal. It has to be filed within 30 days from the Court of Common Pleas or the final judgment. Commonwealth Court hears original actions brought by and against the Commonwealth, appeals from decisions made by state agencies, and some appeals from the Court of Common Pleas. I like to think of Commonwealth Court as more of an administrative court for appeals there. Judge, any follow-up?
Just, I don't know if we want to talk about the makeup of the courts. But we can, talk about that later.
Okay.
Okay.
So, hi, this is Debbie Gross. I'm the CEO of PMC. So the only thing I want to say is that the Commonwealth Court, actually, a complaint could be filed there originally if it relates to, if it's a matter that the state brings relating to, say, taxes or real estate or a local municipality. That it wouldn't be an appeal from necessarily from the Common Pleas Court. There can be, but it's both ways. What court would you, right. What court would you try a case for election? So we've seen this, and we've seen that the Commonwealth Court is the first court that has typically, I don't want to say always, but has in recent past issued decisions about the election situation. And then there can be an appeal from that court. And the appeal from the Commonwealth Court is directly to the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next slide. This is the makeup of the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. Quick facts: founded in 1968, one of the two intermediate appellate courts. It's unique to Pennsylvania. Only hears state government and government agency cases. The term of each judge is 10 years, and there are 9 judges, and the method of selecting these judges is a partisan election. So eventually in the springtime or in the fall time, you'll see a lot of signs about Commonwealth Court. This is what they are referring to.
And the Commonwealth Court judges, they serve 10-year terms. They do not have to run for re-election, and you're going to hear that about the other upper courts also. They actually run for retention. So what you see on the ballot would be just a question: should we retain this judge? It's no longer, they're not running against anyone. The voters are just deciding to keep them or not. And it's very, very rare that a judge or a justice is not retained. I see it has happened, but not very often at all.
Right.
But Your Honor, so I'm gonna empathize with you and say, but MDJs don't get the option of a retention election, but instead what happens, Your Honor?
We do not. We serve a 6-year term, after which we have to actually run for re-election. That's yeah. And you may have, for the magisterial district judges, there may be opposition. That's just the nature of the of the office.
I saw a couple questions. Oh, okay. We'll answer this question at the end. Okay, good.
And as far as the picture is actually out of date. Somebody asked about, 10 instead of 9. The picture's out of date. The picture includes judges who are senior judges. So this is a picture on the Pennsylvania Court's website. We just had recently had Judge Lori Dumas from Philadelphia elected to the Commonwealth Court bench. She is not pictured here. She is one of the few Black judges that have been elected to the Commonwealth Court. The first Black judge that was elected to the Commonwealth Court was Judge Doris Smith Ribner. She is a friend of PMC's, and she wrote recently a great article about Black judges in Pennsylvania on the appellate courts.
Interesting fact. Next slide, please. On to the Superior Court. More quick facts. Founded in 1895. One of 2 intermediate appellate courts. Here's criminal and civil cases. 15 judges with 1 vacancy at the time of this picture. Term is 10 years, and the method is a partisan election. So when you see signs for Superior Court, this is what they are referring to. And these are judges who hear cases across the Commonwealth. They may sit in Pittsburgh one day, they may sit in Armstrong County, they may sit in Harrisburg or Philly. Certain judges and panels at the same time. You just never know when and where they are sitting. And obviously there's a schedule on their website. Judge, any comments or any other follow-up?
When the Superior Court judges are sitting in panels, it's usually a panel of 3. Not, they can sit in bank of up to 9. In bank is just on the bench. But typically when you're before the Superior Court, there will be a panel of 3 judges.
That is correct. Next slide, please. And finally, we have the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Ultimate authority on matters brought before the lower courts. Review is discretionary in many cases. Review is mandatory for a limited category of cases, including interpretation of the state constitution, cases involving death penalty, etc. And King's bench power of extraordinary jurisdiction. So this is the highest court in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They do not have to hear your case. It's discretionary in most cases. Now, there are some mandatory cases that are limited to certain issues involving state constitution and the death penalty. But this is the as far as you can go in the Commonwealth. Now, if there is a federal question, you may want to consider going further into federal court. But in Pennsylvania, this is the top of the line here. This is where everything stops. Any follow-up?
I think you covered it.
All right. What does power of an extraordinary jurisdiction? I have no idea.
So it means that
I'm okay with saying that.
But I can tell. So you typically get to the Supreme Court, right, by first filing in other courts. So you first file maybe in the municipal court, magisterial district court, then it gets you appeal it to common pleas and up the ladder, I will say. But a unique situation is a King's Bench petition that actually goes directly to the Supreme Court and asks for a ruling on a question of law in Pennsylvania. So that's what's so unique about it. It's called a King's Bench petition.
Good fact. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, quick facts, founded in 1722, oldest court in the United States, highest appellate court in Pennsylvania, 7 justices, term 10 years, and the method is a partisan election.
So just for clarification, we've been seeing that term partisan election at the magisterial district judge level and at the common pleas court level. Judges or judge candidates can file, they can cross file. They can file either as a Democrat or as a Republican, or they can run as independents. But once you get to, as Attorney Walker said, once you get to the Commonwealth, Superior Court and Supreme Court level, then it's a partisan election. You have to declare either, either party. Just to clarify, that we're seeing that term.
Thank you, Judge. Next slide, please. The PA Supreme Court has supervisory activities: administrative office of Pennsylvania courts, education of judges, budgeting of the court system, the Judicial Conduct Board, the special committees of Supreme Court, and regulates practice of law, including attorney admission and discipline. If no follow-up, next slide, please. The City County Building at Grant Street in Forbes is home to PA Supreme Court, PA Superior Court, and the Commonwealth Courts when hearing cases involving parties from Western Pennsylvania. All 3 courts use the hearing room on the 8th floor during in-person sessions. So when you see a crowd of people in dark suits going into that building at a certain time of day, odds are they're going to hear or going to argue before the Superior, Supreme, or the Commonwealth Court. Next slide, please. Women on the bench in Pennsylvania. I'm going to, as of February 2021, 30% of Pennsylvania's active judges are women. And I'm sure this has changed, especially with the latest slate of judges who were just elected. 13 women serve as president judges in the courts of common pleas, and you see the list of judges there. There are 3 women serving on 7-member Pennsylvania Supreme Court: Justice Todd, Justice Donahue, and Justice Monday. And Honorable Juanita Kidd Stout was the first elected African-American female judge in the nation, Philadelphia County, and the first African-American woman to serve on any state Supreme Court. The Honorable Sarah Soffel was the first woman appointed as a judge in Pennsylvania in Allegheny County. Interesting facts here. Any follow-up there?
Just a funny fact for me, I find it funny. Anyway, I was shadowing a magisterial district judge, now common pleas court judge, Judge Caulfield, in his courtroom in preparation for my transition to magisterial district judge. And he introduced me to an attorney, and the attorney said, "Well, great, we'll finally have a woman in city court." And I guess there were so many people who didn't realize it for years. Several years, there has not been a woman serving in municipal court in Pittsburgh. So I'm glad to be that now. It's an interesting dynamic. Now, the other judges who are outside of the city of Pittsburgh, they do rotate to city court for arraignments probably once every other month. But as far as women being assigned and actually serving in Pittsburgh municipal court, there's only one. That's yours truly.
Congratulations.
Judge,
That's
who was
exciting.
it before? Was it Judge Watson before you?
It would go back, I believe, to Judge Bubash, who now serves in
Okay.
Police. So she's already been up for retention, which means it would have been more than 10 years.
Yes. Wow.
We need to add you to our fun facts.
Yes. All right, next slide, please.
I saw another question there.
So what is the name of the first Black woman judge elected to the, I missed it. What is it?
It's asked for the name of the first Black woman judge elected to the Supreme Court. So I think it's, it's not Justice Baldwin, but it might be.
I think she was, was she appointed? I thought she was appointed.
She was appointed, you're right. I'm trying, I honestly, I can tell you that Justice Robert Nix was the first Black man elected to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. You know, I am not sure if we have one.
And
elected.
you know, I'm stumped on that one too, because I'm thinking Allen, but she was on Superior Court. Judge Cheryl Allen was on Superior Court. She wasn't on Supreme Court.
I do not think we have had. I'm really pulling at hairs here. I could be wrong, but I do not think we've had a Black female elected to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
I tend to agree. I remember when Judge Allen ran for that spot, and I remember that was one of the sayings that there's never been one elected. But I'll do some more research just to make sure. But great question.
I'm actually gonna. We can connect you or send a link to Judge Smith Ribner's article, and it has the information in there. I'm going to try to pull it up while we're talking.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, one thing's for certain though, we're making great strides, and this last election is just so much evidence of that. Prior to this election, there had never been 2 African-American people elected in the same cycle in the Court of Common Pleas. And in this last election, we seated 4 new Black judges. So we're making those strides. So if there hasn't been one, and I don't think there has been, and Supreme Court, it's coming. It's coming.
All right, Pennsylvania courts versus U.S. courts. You see the pyramid there, the power structure, if you will. Federal courts only hear 2 types of cases. The rest must be heard in state courts. Cases involving federal laws and statutes. And both the plaintiff and defendant are from different states, and the case is far more than in excess of 75,000. Call that diversity jurisdiction. U.S. bankruptcy court, bankruptcies must be filed in this separate federal court. Appeals are made to the U.S. district courts. And for an appeal to be heard from Pennsylvania Supreme Court by the U.S. Supreme Court, it must involve an issue of federal law. And that is a very tough hurdle, and you must establish that there is a clear disruption in the states and in the jurisdictions that only the Supreme Court can resolve. And I've been there, I've done it. I didn't get there, but I thought I had a great question, but I learned a lot throughout that process. So that is the makeup of the courts and the difference between Pennsylvania state courts and U.S. district courts. The federal building, I don't know if we'll get to that, is on Grand Street, but further down, and I believe that is called the Justice, is it the Weiss Federal Building? It used to be the post office. I know in Pittsburgh, it's always, the directions are always go by the old and what used to be. But it was the old post office on Grand Street, at the end of Grand Street. But I think we'll get into that a little bit later on. Next slide. Pennsylvania is divided into 3 district courts: the Western District, the Middle District, and the Eastern District. Pennsylvania is part of the 3rd Circuit of the U.S. Court of Appeals, which also includes New Jersey, Delaware, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I've yet to get an appeal in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but I will, begrudgingly, I will pack my bags and go if I am called to the U.S. Virgin Islands.
So
Any follow-up on that?
There was a judge, the federal judges rotate and actually do sit in the Virgin Islands. And there was a judge from the District of New Jersey, whose name is escaping me, who almost took residence in the Virgin Islands because he had so many trials there. And he actually, if you had a case in New Jersey in federal court, you had a chance of having a hearing in the Virgin Islands because he had so many trials there.
Oh,
wow.
Poor him.
Yeah, exactly. Poor
exactly.
him, you know?
Except your clients weren't too happy with the expense. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. I see another question. So election laws passed in, for example, Texas, can be taken to the U.S. Supreme Court after the Texas Supreme Court.
They have to violate a federal law. There has to be some It could be the United States Constitution, but there has to be an argument that there is a violation of federal law.
Thank you. Just an FYI, at 9th and Market Streets in Philly is the Robert Nix Federal Building, and it did house the PA Supreme Court for about the 1980 into the 1990s. We have a historian on here that's hiding, so you need to come on and help moderate. Thank you for that information, Mr. Hall. Next slide, please. Does federal stand for any federal cases? I think David Gross stated it as clear as possible that it has to violate a federal law. So it has to violate some type of federal law or statute. Federal courthouse, there we go, the address. U.S. District Court at Grant Street and 7th Avenue, houses the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania. Next slide, please.
If I could at this point, presenters, looking at the clock, could I ask that we hold taking questions until there'll be another 2 sections where it's just questions and answers so we can get through both sections, please?
Okay, not a problem. And I'll say that question about the federal cases. I think it's B. McFetrich. But I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but I will say that question, address it during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Ready?
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about judicial elections here. And as Mr. Walker said, last year you saw a lot of signs for judicial elections. Judicial elections are an odd numbered year. So we are now in a 2022 year where you will not see any judicial election signs. I am sure you will see plenty of other signs, but not for judges. Tom, do you want to handle this slide?
Sure. First off, we have a pyramid again, pyramid shape. The left-hand side refers to municipal courts. So that's in Philadelphia. What we have in Allegheny County is on the right-hand side, the magisterial district courts, and that's what Judge Williams Duncan referred to. The Common Pleas Court here in Allegheny County, we just had a very large number of candidates run for their first term elections. And then, as both the judge and Debbie Gross had stated, then they will be in for 10-year terms, and they go through what's called a retention election. Just yes or no, are they going to remain in office? The same goes for the Commonwealth Court and the Superior Courts, and also for the Pennsylvania Supreme Courts. So this is the rough setup of the judicial elections in PA. The qualifications, 21 years of age, the resident of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and you see there in regards to the magisterial district that if you're running for that position, you must live in that district. Certified by the Administrative Office of PA Courts. For the MDJs, they must take a course to show that they have the knowledge necessary, or they can be admitted to the bar in Pennsylvania. And then once they are elected, they take this course to show their proficiency, and then they practice as an MDJ. Then who can become a judge or justice? This would be for the Common Pleas Court, and towards the top, towards the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they must be members of the Pennsylvania Bar. They also have to be a district where they're going to serve. And they go through the partisan elections, as Judge Williams Duncan discussed. They go through primaries, and then they must run for retention elections after their initial elections, remain in office. The MDJs, they are elected for 6 years, then they run through the entire process again. And they serve for the 10-year terms if it's for the Common Pleas and up. And a senior court, a senior status, an example, I believe Judge Williams Duncan, let me know if I'm wrong, but they don't serve as many times. They aren't in court as often as you would be. It's sort of like a retired status where they serve then sometimes, but not as often as the regular judges.
That's correct. And unfortunately for the magisterial district judges, I said the municipal court is a 24/7 operation. They get those off hours, those midnight hours, midnight to 6 a.m. hours that those of us who have to go into court, in the morning wouldn't necessarily be good for or suited for.
Federal judges, though. Federal judges for the District Court, the Circuit Court of Appeals, and the U.S. Supreme Court are appointed by the President for life. That's the process that President Biden started last week. There's a nominating committee that makes a suggestion to the senators, who then follow through the nomination actually made by the President. The Senate does their investigation, the Judiciary Committee, the FBI, and the Justice Department would have the investigations to vet the candidate, and then the Senate confirmation hearings. This is referred to as merit selection, as opposed to election through the partisan process. Please notice there are no age limits, and then for the judges, but they can choose to take a senior judge status. It's a different process for U.S. magistrate and for U.S. bankruptcy judges. But this process is called merit selection. This slide shows then comparing the Pennsylvania state court system of selection and the federal courts. The PA courts, the judges are selected by popular election for the terms, and the judges, other than the MDJs, must then seek retention election. The MDJs must go through the entire re-election process. But for the U.S. court system, they are in a process of being selected by the President with approval by the U.S. Senate for vote. This is an open-ended question to you. Could you name any judge that you have voted for? Are there questions in the chat we could respond to now on this topic?
There aren't any questions, Tom, on this. If anybody has any questions on elections, please feel free to put them in the chat. Why don't we move on?
Okay. Then the role of the public within the Allegheny County courts. Mr. Walker, Judge Williams Duncan, would you like to respond to these? If not, I'd be glad to.
Sure. Just are there questions on this or just the slide?
The slide, if you could.
Sure. Trials are either jury trials or bench trial, decided only by the judge. Well, the client has the right to choose whether or not they want to proceed with a jury trial or a bench trial. In either choice, the client goes in that courtroom clothed in the presumption of innocence and shall remain clothed in that presumption unless and until the Commonwealth proves them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, if they're able to. But they have the absolute right to choose whichever way they want to do. Juries represent the common sense of the people and the common makeup of people. In criminal cases, the jury is made up of 12 jurors, except in rare cases, parties agreeing to fewer. Let's say you start with 12 and someone gets ill during a case, or in this day and age, they are struck with a sickness and are not able to continue. The parties may agree to continue on with 11. In civil cases, jury consists of between 6 and 12 jurors. An indicting grand jury in Pittsburgh is made up of people who can sit as a body and hear testimony from people who are summoned to appear before it. An indicting grand jury occurs in cases in which witness intimidation has occurred, is occurring, or is likely to occur. We've seen an increase in criminal court state grand juries across the Allegheny County in the past maybe 4 to 5 years, and that's probably as a direct result of the increase in use of social media. What happens is people will get their paperwork or discovery, and all of a sudden, all that ends up on social media. Once it's out there, it's hard to take back. So they've started to use the grand jury. So people are protected, the witnesses are protected, the names are protected, even the officers are protected to proceed and start with criminal cases. And it's difficult in that part because now you don't know what to expect. You're jumping right into it as from the defense standpoint. whereas the prosecutor has heard that information and sat with it for some time. So that is the issue or the overview of jury trials and bench trials and grand juries in Allegheny County. Judge, I'll defer if you have any comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
The only thing I just want to remind everybody, as Judge Leah Williams Duncan said, is that remember, there's no juries in front of her, in front of MDJs, right?
Correct.
The juries are only in common pleas court. And
Yes.
also everybody should know, they sometimes don't happen too quickly, right?
No.
The courts have closed in COVID. There is a backlog. There is a right to a quote speedy trial in criminal trials. So unfortunately, or fortunately, or really unfortunately, criminal trials actually get the priority, especially with the closures, over civil trials. So, right now, the courts are doing their best to really move the backlog, but there is a backlog and everybody should be aware of it.
Yes, if you are arrested or you know someone who's arrested for a serious felony such as robbery or a homicide case, that case may not go. Let's say arrested today or this week, that case may not go to a court, be ready to go and tried for maybe a year, 18 months, maybe even 2 years. And that's, people understand there's a speedy trial, but also you want your attorney to be effective and zealously represent you. The only way they're able to do that is properly prepare. And there's wiretaps, there's pictures, photos, phone dumps, all that stuff that has to be reviewed in a short amount of time. So you want to make sure that you understand the process and what's the outlook, at least on the timeline. Everyone wants to say, let's get it over. I just want to get it over with. That's not necessarily possible or probable in criminal court.
No comments on that, but when it's appropriate, I'd like to respond to Juliet's question. It popped up and then it went away. So when it's appropriate.
Oh, you can. I did answer it for you, so you wouldn't be put in a position, so you know. But let me emphasize that, and then you can comment. That's fine. Julia's question are what limitations are there in positions judges can take while campaigning? They're supposed to apply the law impartially, yet campaigning requires saying what you're for and against. Well, the judges have a code of judicial conduct, and they are not allowed to comment on a topic that will be before them. So, in this day and age, judges get asked frequently, unfortunately, what their position is, and they cannot answer. Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts holds judicial candidate forums during election years. And, we begin with saying there are certain questions that cannot be asked of the candidates. What you should do when you're deciding whether to vote for a judge is learn about the judge, learn about their background, learn about why they wanted to become a judge, learn about what they've given back to the community, what makes that judge a good person, but not, the judge is following the law and is not making a decision based on his or her own beliefs, or should not be doing that. And go ahead, Your Honor, if you want to, but I didn't want you to feel compelled to do that.
The judicial, candidate is unique, from all other political candidates, because we really can't promise anything. And as Deb said, we can't take a position on anything. The only thing we can promise really is to be fair and impartial, to assess all of the facts, and to apply the law appropriately. So we aren't given positions on actual issues. There was a hot ticket item in this last election which had to do with cash bail. And, I often had to say, I cannot, the code of conduct does not allow me to say how I would rule on any case before I even hear that case. So, a judicial candidate can't say, well, I won't apply cash bail, because you can't make a decision before you've heard a case. So the only thing that we can promise is to be fair and impartial and professional, basically.
And honestly, the judge has to apply the rules, and there are rules regarding bail. And, the judge has, I will tell everybody, there are proposed changes to the rules concerning bail in the rules of criminal procedure. But until those changes are implemented, the judge has to apply the rules that exist today.
And it's sometimes when you hear it coming from a candidate, it sounds like a bailout kind of answer, but it's really not. We are abiding by the code of conduct. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the best answer we can give.
I see what you did there with bailout. I see what you did there. Mark has a question about jury selection in capital cases. Do prosecutors still try to prevent individuals opposed to capital punishment from serving on juries in capital cases? Yes and no. It's not their intent to exclude them because they think they're a bad jurist or possibly bad jury members. But what you want on a jury is someone who's fair and impartial, who can apply the law. So a defense attorney or a prosecutor probably won't want anyone on there who can't follow the law, because the judge will ask and swear them in and say, are you able to follow the law? And if that law requires you to vote on life or death, or whether or not someone can receive capital punishment, then you're not able to serve on this jury. So it's not that they try to prevent them from serving on there. They just want to make sure everyone can apply the law. I hope that answers your question.
Tom, next slide.
Attorney Walker or Judge, you want to respond to this?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Me too.
Always respond to a jury summons, even if you think you are exempt from service. Ignoring a summons may result in fines, imprisonment for contempt of court. And I've seen it. I've seen people get dragged in before a judge and have to respond to why they didn't respond to a summons. Each jurisdiction reserves the right to accept or reject requests for excusal, but by law, those excused are only those involved in active service in armed forces, families of victims, those persons demonstrating undue hardship caused by jury service. And now when you're selecting a jury, the proctor in the room will ask certain questions. Are you suffering from a severe hardship that you wouldn't be able to serve as a juror? Is there anything about this case that will prevent you from serving as a fair and impartial juror? Do you have a work or serious emergency or serious responsibility that you cannot serve as a fair and impartial juror? And people think that sitting in juries are boring, or it's just, that's a no. You got fooled. Why would you go sit in jury? Well, think about this. If everyone thought that way and tried to get out of jury service, what would happen if you are the person who's in need or wants or elects to have a jury trial, and everyone there is trying to get out of it? How would you be able to select a fair and impartial juror? Now you're in a position to where either you have to postpone, or you're in a position where maybe you have to consider going a bench trial, which maybe you wouldn't want to do. Maybe you want a fair cross-section of your community to decide whether or not the Commonwealth has met their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. So I encourage everyone to please respond to the jury summons. Don't think it's a game. Don't try to shun your responsibility, because there are literally people's lives, at stake, their freedom. I mean, where someone spends the next 20 years can be determined whether or not you respond to that summons, because your input is valuable. Everyone has a different opinion from different parts of the Commonwealth, different life experiences, and diversity of thought is what we need in the jury rooms, and you're a part of that. So please don't ignore that summons, because you're only harming your fellow citizens and possibly harming yourself later on if someone tries to do the same thing.
And the only thing I will add to that is, first, Frank Walker is so correct. Okay, serving the jury on a jury is part of your duty, really, as a citizen. When individuals become naturalized, citizens, they come from a foreign country, they want to become American citizens. That's what is emphasized the most, that they should become involved in our country, sit on the jury. The other thing everybody should know is that there is a proposed bill out there to raise the daily rate for jury duty. In Pennsylvania, I am embarrassed to say we are among the 10 lowest states with respect to compensation for jury duty. But there is a bill out there to increase it. So if you know your state rep, reach out to them. Say, I support that bill, because jury duty is truly important. And there was one other thing that I just totally forgot because it's so important. Okay, I'll come back to it. Sorry.
No, I always respond to any summons issued by or any summons, any subpoena issued by.
Yes.
I had to way back in my criminal defense days, I had to make the very unpopular decision to ask the judge for a warrant for a witness who failed to appear on a subpoena. This was a witness that it was that important to my client's case. Even if this person was going to come in as a hostile witness as a result of my saying, Judge, I need this person here. I needed to do it, for my client. So even if it's a subpoena to be a witness, any summons, any subpoena issued by the court, please always respond.
Okay, if you would choose to represent yourself, self-representation, all cases would begin with filing of a complaint, and those are available on the 5th Judicial District website here in Allegheny County. The Allegheny County Court, their civil division, has all the forms necessary, but everyone, if you wish to represent yourself, you must realize that the complaint and all papers must be served on the defendant, properly called service, and you must follow the directions. If you do not make proper service, the case may be lost, and the court also is not able to give legal advice to pro se litigants, and a pro se litigant is a person who's involved with litigation but is not represented by counsel. Mr. Walker or Judge Williams Duncan, comments on this one?
I do know in the family division there is a pro se program. It's manned by, I believe it's students from Duquesne University to assist with motions, pro se motions, and that may be unique to the family division. But again, they're not providing representation. It's basically assistance in completing the forms.
I have no further comment. I think you covered that pretty well.
The other option is that sometimes the bar associations can assist. Allegheny County Bar Association, if you go on their website, they can help you with pro se, or they can even see if they can help you find representation. There are various legal service organizations that if you have a certain level of income and below, I will say, they will provide representation for you, or at least provide some guidance. There are clearly not enough lawyers working for the legal service organizations to help everybody who needs legal representation. And the other thing you just need to emphasize is that the court staff are always amazing. If you have a landlord-tenant case, and you have to go into an MDJ, their staff will help you with the landlord-tenant case. The judge cannot help you. Okay, the judge, the judge cannot talk to one party and not talk to the other party. That's called ex parte communications. That's not allowed. But the court administration is there to help you fill out forms. There are a lot of forms available not only on the Allegheny County website, but on the Pennsylvania court website, and feel free to even reach out to somebody who knows somebody. Like lawyers have a duty to give back. I will say they do a lot of pro bono representation, so you'd be surprised that there are a lot of attorneys out there who are also willing to help.
For voters, if you're looking to vote for the judicial elections, these are our suggestions as to how you might be able to get information to evaluate the judicial candidates. I believe Debbie Gross spoke about this, the legal experience of the candidates, the reputation in the community for integrity and fairness, their involvement, their educational and professional activities. As a former trial attorney myself, compassion. Will the judge listen to an argument, a good faith argument made, and then their commitment to an equal justice? Should you wish to find out more information, where could you go? Here in Allegheny County, we have a statewide bar association, and that website's listed there, but we also have the Allegheny County Bar Association. Within the Allegheny County Bar Association, candidates for Allegheny County Court and the statewide appellate courts complete questionnaires that are given to the members, and then they're investigated by teams who conduct interviews and searches of the candidates. They are vetted then from the Bar Association Selection Committee, and then they are granted either a recommended or not recommended status. The bottom paragraph here talks about that a person, if they are running for a candidate, and if they are already as an attorney, they could have been subject to a disciplinary action by the Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board, or if they are already on the bench, they may have received a notice or an action by the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board. So these are two disciplinary boards that may have been involved with that candidate.
May I say here,
Please do.
I have to give a shout out for the League of Women Voters. Of all of the, the organizations that evaluate and publish material regarding the judicial candidates, the League of Women Voters, in my opinion, my humble opinion, by far does the best job. They actually put out a not a brochure, it's more than that. It's almost like a newspaper. And, they ask the candidates, they present the same questions to all the candidates, do a very nice, background summary. And then they actually hold candidate forums also, which are very neutral, very informative, and just, like I said, they just do a very nice job bringing the information together in a way that, your average layperson can understand it and, really gain a lot from it. So during election time, make sure you look at the publication that's done by the League of Women Voters, and if possible, catch some of their forums.
Pennsylvania Modern Courts
I agree.
also does candidate forums. Attorney Walker.
No, I agree with the judge. I mean, the League of Women Voters does an excellent job, a thorough job, and it's not just one event. It's forums, it's papers. I think they had on the website, they had the candidates do certain clips, video clips of certain issues, and they asked the tough questions. So yes, anytime you're looking for research on a judge, definitely do your own independent research, compare and contrast of what they're saying in this forum versus what they're saying in that forum, and make sure that their message is consistent. The main thing you're looking for is someone who's fair and impartial. That's the main thing they're looking for. When they're making claims that are just unreasonable and don't seem like they're going to be able to accomplish, then I would really view them through that prism, because it's difficult to get on the bench and legislate from the bench. It's actually illegal to do that. But some judges make those claims just to get your attention, your vote, and your support. But that's not, they're just telling you what you want to hear. But please do your own research, listen to some of the forums, attend some of the forums, ask the questions, and get the answers you need to make an informed decision.
So please vote. The decisions affect us all and need qualified people on the bench. Please make the effort to learn about the candidates, as speakers have said so far. I'm well aware of the time. I would like to move to our final 2 or 3 slides. From PMC, Pennsylvania Modern Courts, we feel that judiciary is an independent third branch of government. We feel that there have been recent legislative attacks on the independence of this judiciary through constitutional amendments, specifically House Bill 38, Appellate Court Redistricting Bill, House Bill 1880 for term limits on appellate courts, and House Bill 2141 for no retention elections. If you would like more information on these threats to the independence of our Pennsylvania judiciary, could you please go to our homepage listed there. I'd like to extend our thank you to Attorney Frank Walker and Magisterial District Judge Williams Duncan for presenting, and thank you to the Monroeville Library for hosting. Comcast, again, thank you for your support of our court basics workshops all across the state. And PMC in the community. We have 3 different programs. One here with the PMC Watches. The judge was speaking before the program tonight about our Bail Watch program here in Allegheny County. We have an 800 number for referral to legal agencies and resources, PMC Listens, and we have just completed a PMC Shares with the Monroeville Public Library. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You can find this recording on pmconline.org, probably in the next couple of days. Thanks for joining us. And you can also find additional workshops on our website as well, with additional recordings of previous workshops and a whole bunch of other information. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.